Who that say going to beat them Saints? Who that? Not the Giants. Not today. In an NFL Week 5 action, the New Orleans Saints spotted the Giants an early 14 to nothing lead, then came storming back with 26 unanswered points. Young players and veterans alike stepped up to make big play after big play to give the Saints 26-14 win. Who dat indeed? I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. Young players stepping up in the win. Important theme here. Now, no disrespect to the Giants, but they're pretty much in the same boat we're in a rebuild, trying to find their quarterback, have some good players, some good veteran players, trying to add some young players. Really, talent wise, not that far apart. So I think being at home gave us the advantage, and we had to take advantage of that advantage, and we did. But it looked bad at the start. 2 straight drives they had on offense. They dropped 14 on us, pretty much doing what they wanted to do, when they wanted to do it, how they wanted to do it, almost telling us how they wanted us to play it to make it look that easy. That's what it seemed like. But all of a sudden, we started stepping up and making plays. And our young players were at the center of it. Now, when the game ended, I went in to check. Normally, PFF does their grading. They have a preliminary grade. But when I checked, probably about an hour after the game ended, they had their final grades up. So as far as I know, these are the final grades. I was expecting to see good things, and I did. I was expecting the defense to grade out better than the offense, and they did. I was not expecting to see things that weren't concerning for the first time in 5 weeks. So it really wasn't. Now, does that mean it's perfect? Hell no. Are there things that aren't good? Yes. Do we need to get better? Hell yes. But all that being said, when you dive, let's start with the offense. Top 5 players that graded out: Shaheed at 82.9, Rattler at 77.3, Fawaga at 71.4, Olave 69.7, McCoy 66.4. Top 5, 4 of them young players, all original Saint players. We didn't get them from anywhere else. We drafted them, or in the case of Shaheed, we signed him as a UDFA. Going a little deeper into the grades, because I did want to look at the offensive line. Mm, the pass blocking grade overall was pretty good. You had 2 issues, and I really hope one of them's a misprint. But Banks, they graded out pass blocking 35.1. Simpkins at 0.0. I have never seen that in a PFF grade. I can't believe that's right, but that's, as I said, they were saying it was final grade. That's what they were showing. But everybody else was fairly good or really good. Case McCoy and a couple, and Flog and a couple others, and pass blocking. Just fantastic. Overall, even these two low grades didn't really hurt us. Didn't give up a sack. We did give up some pressures. Rattler got hit a couple of times, but nothing they did derailed anything we were trying to do on offense as far as the pass rush was concerned. Because if you neutralize their pass rush like we did, you can see that their pass defense becomes vulnerable. And it was. Now, run blocking, the lowest grade we had was Trevor Penning at 51.0, which basically means you had no failing grades on run blocking from the offensive line. That's outstanding. Now, the high end, unlike pass blocking, you didn't have anybody really grade out awesome with, A pluses or B pluses or anything like that. But overall, another category I can kind of live with it right now, especially again the defensive line: Thibodeau, Lawrence, Burns, the rookie Carter. Really good football players they were having to deal with. At least held your own, and nothing that went on that they did derailed what you were trying to do on offense and stop you. More to the point, big plays. It's one of the things we talked about during the week. We need big plays on both sides of the ball. Well, the offense delivered those. You had 9 plays that went for 10 plus yards. big plays, explosive plays, as they're called, and one of them went for 87. That was an absolute backbreaker. I think that was a not a backbreaker. That was a game changer on many, many levels. And once we did that, because prior to that, they were like, can't throw over the top on us. And they were doing a good job jamming up our offense, keeping everything short, intermediate in the passing game, and trying to fill those run lanes, not really getting anything going. We hit that big play over the top, kind of changed everything. Defensively, wow. Brzee, 91.8. Taylor, 82.5. McKinstry, 80.1. Burgess, 79.9. And what a hell of a big play he made in the first half, breaking up that flea flicker. Sanker, 78.4. Howden, 73.4. Our defensive backs played really, really well. Really aggressive. Something we also talked about during the week. Got to go get some balls, make some plays. Check, they did that. Got to break up some passes. Good coverage and break up passes. Check, they did that. Tackled really, really well. Now, we had no defender with a grade below 51.3. Everybody passed. Outstanding. I can tell you that hadn't happened in 5 weeks. Chris Rumpf was the lowest with that 51.3. Now, again, this was one of those you had some barely passing or above average scores, whatever you want to call it. But I think a lot of that had to do with those first two drives where we didn't really do much of anything. And they were showing 10 missed tackles, which I thought was a high number. I know we had some, especially in those first two drives. I didn't think it was 10, but that's what PFF is calling it. And some of these players whose overall grade was a little low, they were getting pounded for missed tackles. I can't remember any player having more than one, though. And other than the first two drives, I can't really remember where we had a missed tackle that was really, really costly for us. So I am taking that part of it with a grain of salt because everybody kind of grades missed tackles or identifies missed tackles a little different. Now, you did give up, and this is probably another thing that pops in. You did give up 8 big plays to them, 10 plus, but the longest one they had was a 20-yard scramble by Dart. So you didn't, you know, modern NFL, a lot of teams are going to get these 10 plus things. You don't want to give up more than plus 20. You certainly don't want to give up plus 87 for a touchdown. But overall, even if we had a lot of missed tackles that were accurate, the previous weeks, think back to the shaker play last week, almost always these explosive touchdown plays that we gave up, run or pass, a lot of times involved missing a tackle. So even if we did have still 10 is too many, if that was the accurate number, but even if we had that, at least we limited it somewhat. And it didn't give up that explosive play. Now, real quick, the young players had most of the big plays, but not all of them. In the first half, Kamara 11-yard run, Rattler to Shaheed for 10, Rattler to Olave for 15, Rattler 10-yard run, Rattler to Kamara for 12, Rattler 11-yard run, and then of course the Rattler the 87-yarder for a touchdown. Second half kind of dried up for both teams. We had 3, they only had 2, but it was Rattler to Olave for 17. Kendre Miller in the fourth quarter had an 11-yard run doing that stretch where we were backed up and we used him to pound it out of trouble deep in our own territory and get it out of there and not give the Giants awesome field position and a chance to climb back in the game late. In between there was the third and short where we rolled up with the Taysom package and the two veterans, Hill and Johnson, gave us a hold my beer moment when Hill actually threw the 17-yard completion to Johnson. So young players stepping up and making big plays. And we'll get a little deeper into the big plays and the turnover in just a second. But just to give you a glimpse of those 9 we had, Rattler, Olave, Miller grabs one. Shaheed obviously grabbed a couple. And then steady veterans, Kamara, Hill, and Johnson giving their contributions. It's the same way on defense when we start breaking down some of the big plays there. That's energy, that kind of leadership, veteran leadership, but the young guys stepping up and making plays. This is the kind of thing we have to have going forward. We won't have any chance of winning games. And really, outside the first 10, 15 minutes, first quarter of the game, We had it the rest of the game to the point where once we took control of the game and took the lead, at least I can speak for myself, I wasn't overly stressed. As long as we didn't do anything stupid, felt like we were going to win that game and we were never really in danger of losing it. Kind of turned out that way. But a big part of that was the big plays, both on offense and the big plays on defense with the turnovers. Look, key players making big time plays. Big time players make big time plays, right? And it got started in the first half because none was bigger, like I said earlier, than Terrell Bird just recognizing that flea flicker and getting back down there and breaking that thing up. Now, as they said, I think it was Charles Johnson said on the broadcast, it was like, well, it was a layup, and that's what would basically dart through down there. But regardless, he had to come a long way to keep that from being an easy touchdown. And if that easy touchdown happens, there's no telling what happens in this game. But I'm pretty sure they would have been in the position of as long as they didn't do anything stupid, they were going to comfortably win the game, not us. You also had the deep shot and how important that was because prior to that, we were seeing a lot of they weren't worried about the deep shot. I don't think they were really defending it. I think they were stacking up in there, wanting to take intermediate, the short game, the checkdowns, all that away, as well as have the ability to come up in the running game. So even when we could spring, or if we could spring a runner out of that really, really good defensive line, they had a lot of built-in run support that wasn't that far away from the line of scrimmage to begin with. Blow that top off and give up that play and change things on that back end for them a little bit. Start creating the space where I think Rattler and Olave and Shaheed especially operated in that intermediate. It wasn't devastating, but it was enough of getting guys open, picking up some third downs, moving some chains. Something we really struggled to do for the first 4 weeks. I won't say it was easy, but it was easier and it was definitely a lot better than what we have seen. Biggest thing is got a minute 13 left to go in the second half. They've got the ball, they're driving. They get the ball back at the beginning of the second half. And the reason why they have this is because Groupie has just missed a field goal. So there's a lot at stake right here that if they go down and get points, the momentum we'd built to kind of get back in the game, almost be a repeat of Buffalo. All of a sudden, we're just hanging on in the third quarter, and who knows what happens later on in the game. Well, speaking of veteran hold my beer moments, Demario Davis says no. They get a completion. He comes in, makes a tackle, strips the ball out. Jonas Sanker, who was just awesome this whole game, runs over there, scoops the ball, returns it 27 yards, basically puts us in field goal range, kicked the go-ahead field goal, which I guess ultimately was a winning field goal because they didn't score a point after that, and we didn't give up that lead from that point on. So you're going, okay, dodged a bullet there. Now we still have to give them the ball after the second half. And if they come back down and get any type of points, they retake the lead. Well, Dart on a scramble, loses the ball. Cam Jordan jumps on it. We really could have put a dagger in there with a touchdown right there, but this was one of the points where we didn't do anything stupid, but we did do some costly stuff, had a couple penalties in there that made the drive really hard to keep it alive. Eventually stalls out, we kick a field goal, but in there we did have a big third down completion from Rattler to Olave, and of course that was the drive with the Hill to Johnson pass to convert another third down. We don't have the pre-snaps because that's what one of them was, or Rattler just the double pass, the illegal forward pass thrown at the second time, which I guess was reflex, but yeah, you can't do that. So both of those could have hurt. We were able to overcome the first one, couldn't quite overcome the second one, but it's still at that point. Groupie manages to make a field goal and not miss one. First play of the fourth quarter, that I think was the backbreaker. There's no doubt because they had been driving, they'd gotten in the red zone. First snap of the fourth quarter, they're handing it off to their stud running back, Scatterboo, trying to break through the line. Brazil punches the ball out. Howden picks it up, 86-yard touchdown return on the fumble recovery. And I think I didn't think they had a lot of swag or momentum going at that time, but I think if they score there, especially if it's a touchdown, okay, now that would be the point where, as I was saying earlier, I really wasn't worried we were going to lose that game. That'd caused me some stress. That'd have changed a lot of stuff. Instead, it flipped it back the other way, and I think it threw all the stress on them. And then you got the crowd really on top of them after that. And that is just a bad combination to be in when you're in the dome. We haven't seen that lately. Definitely not this year, and not a whole lot last year. But to see that come alive was good, many levels, because then the defense really started stepping up. That point out, you got Kool Aid McKinstry just going off and being the guy that's going to be, I'm going to make plays. Two picks. Towards the end of the game, they're throwing up a desperation ball into the end zone to Theo Johnson, who we struggled with all day. Kinstry plays it perfect, knocks the ball down, gets a PBU. Big time play coming down the stretch because that's three plays, two turnovers, and then breaking up an attempted 50-50 ball with their big tight end, who, like I said, we didn't stop him from doing much earlier in the game when they were trying to get him the ball. Pretty much kills it right there, right? I think overall defensively, like I'd said, the defensive backs really were good in this game. Not only McKinstry and Sanker and Howden and Riley, all of them doing a good job of playing this defense from the back end like we need it played. Meaning you're gonna give up some stuff underneath. They're gonna get some opportunities to like we were saying earlier, just these 10-yard type plays just kind of happen when they find space or they in the running game, they run through the right gap, so to speak, and you got to come in and clean it up. Or they get a completion, looking for the short completion, trying to get yards after the catch. You got to run up there and tackle them before they can go anywhere. I thought our secondary did a fantastic job of doing that. All young players, all players that if they can develop into what we need them to develop, and they showed a lot of what we needed in this game. Keep getting better doing it. Man, that is a win-win on many, many levels. Offensively, like I mentioned, I think Shaheed and Alavi did a great job of operating where they needed to operate and getting open on some passes where Rattler could efficiently run the offense, winning football, complementary football. Defense is taking over the game. You know, we hit the big score for the touchdown, kind of gets everything close now. Then defense starts taking over, forcing the turnovers, one right before half, the one right after half, on and on and on, score on a defensive turnover. Now the offense is going, we've got to play winning football, which it goes back to don't do anything stupid. They did not. They converted some third downs, but when they didn't put anything in jeopardy. Understood. We'll punt it. We'll give them, try to pin them back as much as we can, try to flip the field. But our defense is making plays, and we're going to let them keep doing it. We're just here to burn as much clock as we can. We can hit a big play and go get a score like we did in the first half, Rattler to Shaheed, fine. But don't let them make a big play, a pick, fumble recovery for a touchdown, any of that stuff to get themselves back in the game. Didn't do it. One time we really had to do something. That's Miller, where we mentioned his 11-yard run. Started feeding Kendra, going, you got to get us out of here. He did. Picks up a couple first downs. We're able to get out under that gauntlet and not put our defense in bad position when we do have to give the ball back to the Giants. I think Rattler also used his legs effectively a couple of times to kind of get us out of some jams, whether to roll out and get a pass off or the one in the red zone where everything was covered, just throw it out the back, make sure we get the field goal attempt, things like that. I think overall, what we were seeing with the defense, the offense in that stages of the game did the right thing. It was pretty much play called right by Kellen Moore along the way. So I like the young players, like the big plays, like the fact that we were forcing big plays on offense. We were getting those 10 pluses. We broke one big one for a touchdown. Defensively, we're getting turnovers. We're getting pressure, even though we didn't get a sack, except for the one we got the referee with the terrible call on. But we still got some pressure, still caused some problems. Batting balls at the line or enabling coverage to knock a ball downfield. or to make an interception, whatever. All this just kept building. This is the kind of thing we needed to see in this game, and we saw it. Now, I didn't do this for the first four because there were losses. I just feel player of the game when you lose. It's like, but we got to win. Talk about players of the game. Feel like it's got to be Rattler on offense. Defensively, I am torn between McKinstry, Howden. I'm sorry, McKinstry, Sanker, and Brazil. Uh, you probably won't let me get away calling it with a three-way tie, but I think I'm gonna go with Brazil on this one. But man, the other two are right there. I think all three of them just played tremendous football games, and they were all involved in those big plays when we needed them. Special teams, not doing it. I'm not talking about special teams because on a win, on a high note, let's try to keep it there. So in lieu of special teams, I'm going to say the crowd is a player of the game for what I had said in the previous video when I was there for Frisco. We were just waiting. Please give us something to shut their crowd up and let us yell. And it was just like pulling teeth. Couldn't quite get it done. They were doing it. Now I wasn't there at the game today. I was watching at home. But it's been a long time since I could hear the crowd over my TV set while I'm watching the game. So let me know down in the comments who your players of the game were. So as a wrap up, kind of the last thing on the rundown, the importance of this win, because 0-5, that means asking tough questions I don't want to ask. Not now, but 0-5 meant we'd have had to do it. You probably realize what kind of questions I'm talking about. Should we make a change at quarterback? So trade deadline approaches. Should we start being sellers and start trying to move some of the veteran players or the players we may not be able to resign and see what we can get for them, that sort of thing. Now, those questions will likely happen sooner than later, but for right now, I would like to see us keep improving, keep trying to find answers to the questions with the young players, and still trying to keep some of those veterans who may draw interest from other teams on this team going, no, because by next year, we'll be in a position where we need those veterans still here. But you go 0-6, 0-7 at that point, you know what's going to happen. And that all starts with an 0-5. On top of that, you get New England in here next week. Then you go to Chicago. I feel like right now, they're both winnable games. They're going to both be tough games, but I think they can both be winnable games. Virtue of the fact you get New England here, but that one's going to be a dogfight. And then Chicago, you just don't kind of know what's going on them with them. Going on the road and having to play in a tough place, we've done that twice. We get blown out once. We hung for a while on the second one, but they're not as good as either one of those teams. So you think best effort? Who knows what can happen there? 3-4, all these questions and conversations are going to be completely different than at least now we've got a win under our belt. So I thought about this during the week. Some of the people in the comments had kind of talked about it. But it was like never specifically brought up. And we get to, I'm just referencing it for all honesty about how important this win was, because now we can still keep focusing on getting guys better, developing this young talent, and really truly getting a good read to the best of our ability with talent we can put on the field. Who are going to be the centerpieces of this rebuild? Who are going to be the depth pieces? And then start having the conversation of what are we going to do with the rest of them? Conversation I'd rather have real close to the deadline, or even more preferably later in the season, off season type thing. I did not want to have it in week 5. Avoided that. Thank you, Saints. Big win. First time here. If you like what you saw, please hit the like, share, subscribe, comments. Let me know. Like I said, who's your players of the game? Disagree with my choices? Go ahead. I think it's actually a tough call, really, I do, especially on defense, so, yeah, interested to see who y'all come up with. Also, I'm gonna shoot for Wednesday, but it may be Thursday morning, um, doing the film review, the film study episode. I'm planning, unless you tell me differently down in the comments, I'm planning trying to keep this positive, the little bit of negative I had just there on the wrap up to end it. That's it. I don't want to do any more of that this week. I want to go look at the really, really good plays and show what went on there. That's the kind of stuff hopefully we keep seeing in the future. I know there was some stuff I saw some of it live. You're going, "Ugh," that I normally would, but unless you want me to, I'm just going to avoid those for the film study show. So let me know down in the comments. And till I see you next time, I'm Tim. Peace out and who dat.